Namaskar and welcome to this exciting new episode of Sattology Debunking Mythology. And we are bringing Gita live, making it live for all of us. Very important topics we talk about hell or heaven, and we usually say go to hell, but we don't say go to heaven. Why? We have to think about it. So we want everyone to go to hell, no? But anyway, we have a great scholar, great writer, poet, and I would say with a great sense of humor and a musician, all combined into one. And he has written a great book called Gita Comes Alive. So without delay, let us welcome Sri Jeffrey Armstrong.
Pranam Adi and to everyone. It's so wonderful to be reaching out to universities around the world. It's just the best of what we could do with technology right now. So greetings to all of you.
Thank you, Jeffrey ji. And it's a really remarkable that people when they curse, they use the words karma is a bitch and use go to hell. But we have not seen somebody saying go to heaven. And why is that? Why so much partiality between the two words?
Well, I think we have to consider the everyday usage of those words a bit irrational. Let's just say words that are expletives and used for expressing our dismay or our disgust are not always used in a scholarly way. But what will surprise you is that they're not being used in a scholarly way anyway. That everyone is very confused about those words. And worse, they've been used for translating precise Sanskrit words. So what should we do first, heaven or hell?
We should talk about heaven first because that's the positive
Uh,
side of it.
so the word heaven has been used as a translator for Svarga Loka, one of the 14 lokas, level 10, 2 levels up from us. Now, interestingly enough, the word loka gives us the English word location,
Wow.
but it's not exactly the same because it would be better to think of loka as dimension. A dimension may be a location, but a dimension escapes from three-dimensional matter. But a location is within three-dimensional matter. So it's not a correct synonym. It's not a correct translation. There are lokas at each dimension level of the existence of this universe, which is a kind of a projection on multiple levels of reality and existence. In our physical body, we can only be on level 8, Earth, otherwise known as Bu, me, Loka. Bu gives us the English word to be. It's where we be. But Bu me was then pronounced hu me. They dropped the B, and that gave us human and homi and humus, the dirt of from which we derive our plants and vegetables. And so then eventually homi said, what it be? The black said, yo, what it be? So they went right back to the correct Sanskrit definition of bu without even knowing it. So the question is then, where could we be sent if we're in a universe? Well, to any one of the 14 lokas. And the 10th one, which is 2 above us, is considered kind of the Hawaii vacation of the material world, of our cosmos, because it's only pleasant. And you can go there in your dream body. You can visit, but you can't stay because you have a physical body back on level 8, on Bhumi Loka. So that's what we sometimes say when I dream. I could go to this really exquisite place, but now let's say why it's not heaven. The word heaven developed in English in Scotland. And the Scottish live in a rough country because the glaciers a long time ago scraped away all the topsoil. Their agriculture is not very great. It's tough to grow crops. So their favorite crop that feeds them all year long is called avon, and it means oats. So the way it works is you plant the avon, it grows a certain height after a while, if you're lucky. Then you come with a sickle and you cut it down. Then a tall wagon comes and you get a pitchfork and you throw the Avon into the wagon, which they called heaving the Avon. So heaving the Avon gives us heaven, which means enough oatmeal for the winter. So the literal meaning of the Christian word heaven is enough oatmeal for the winter. So that's the first laugh. You should be laughing now because they're really serious about we're going to go to heaven and you're going to go, to the other place. So we'll talk about the other place in a minute. So this is why in the Gita, when it says Loka, we really don't want the word oatmeal as the translation.
See, there's a big misconception in the people here that, first of all, in the last session, we did cover, if you don't believe in reincarnation, then who goes to heaven? Because you have put the body in the ground and you said, rest in peace. So that guy is peaceful here. He can't enjoy now. So why deprive pleasure to the people who have already passed from this earth? So it's a very logical question. Like if you say he went to heaven, then if you don't believe in that, then where did he go? What destination did he attain? And it brings to another important question which most of the people have in mind is, do aliens exist? Now the etymology of alien is something which you can throw your light, because I need to very interested to hear that. And before we move to the second part of the first question.
Well, I'm not sure that I can actually give you the etymology of alien. I haven't done that one because I've never seen it used in the Gita translation. But one thing I'll tell you is that the cosmic view rests upon us, our yogic cosmic view in the Gita rests upon the idea that we're the Atma. So once we come to a material universe, to a Jagat, we can't leave until we're allowed to. But we can relocate ourselves to any one of the lokas, and everything is done by karma. Everything is done by action. But not every loka allows you to generate karma. Only level 8, where we are, is the karma generating loka. Then you go visit a loka for a while. So below us is the animal kingdom, which was mistakenly called hell. The word hell is the same word as hole, Hole, and the same word as the hull of a ship. They have no difference in meaning. Hell just means a hole in the ground, which is quite ironic since that's where we build a condominium for our newly deceased, fill their veins with formaldehyde and put a nice suit on them and put them in hell. We put them in a hole in the ground, a sort of holding tank, in the case they ever need that body again. Pretty strange, pretty strange. So that group doing that think we're strange for believing that we're an immortal being who can go throughout the universe and relocate to have experiences anywhere and have a lifetime there. But the default setting is no matter where you go, upper lokas or lower lokas, you will come back to Bhumi Loka, to an earth planet, because you're still trying to decide if you want to leave and go back where you came from in Brahman, otherwise known as moksha.
You made a very good point on, you touched many different words, and it just now gives me a lot of pointers now. Now the you mentioned the point about the eighth loka where we are living right now, Bhu, me, and where we are living here, and that's the only place where we do karma. And so we create a karma bank here, and everywhere else either we spend it, or we just spend it.
We
So
expend it or spend it, or we get there and we're an alien. I'm sorry, my checking account's back on Earth.
and then when that bank has no money, karma money in it, and then you come back here again. So this is like a brahma bhuvanar loka punar avartino arjuna. Like you go from brahma and down to the lowest planet, But and Punaravartino is Krishna is himself saying it that Punaravartino, you have to come back again and again and again. So how can we finish this bank business? Or what do we do to finish this bank business?
Well, this is one of my specialties because I'm a Jyotishi. And by the way, the word Jyoti or light gives us the English word joy. It's Jyoti. It's Jyotish because it is the light that is traveling throughout the cosmos. That is the borrowed light of Brahman, of the place we came from. And what makes us unique is that since we're from another place that's luminous and never dark, we're the never dark particle. And that's why this body is actually orbiting us, just as we have a solar system going around the sun. So our Atma is right now being orbited by the food we had for lunch and breakfast and dinner.
Exactly.
This body is particles of food orbiting the Atma. And that process is very important to think about so we understand that cause and effect or karma is not a punishment system. It's not punishment and reward. It's just how everything here works. Everything you do disturbs molecules and puts an action and reaction sequence in motion. And so it's like imagine little ping pong balls floating all over the universe. And we keep impinging upon them with our consciousness. And then they go out and then they come back. So sometimes I call it the Karma Cafe because you can order anything you want, but you get what you deserve. You get what you put in motion. It's not punishment.
That's right.
Every time you move particles and create reactions. So that's karma. And when you think punishment, you're thinking heaven, hell, and you're thinking Christianity because their deity is angry. Yahweh is angry.
Very
But
angry.
Bhagavan is not, and Bhagavan doesn't send you any place. You send yourself there.
A German scholar visited India during the time of a great, time of a great sage, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur.
Mm.
And he went throughout India, and then Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur asked him, "Who you think is God?" He said, "Krishna, because he's enjoying. He's only playing flute." It's a very different way of looking at it from a neutral perspective. That a person who is not, because anyone you consider them powerful, like for example, we have materially very, very successful people in California, they're playing golf whole day long. So making the image of God as someone carrying the big burden of something and moving around, how intelligent is that image? Like old man, very old man, and lifting the great thing on the back and walking around. That is the general impression that is being given to people. So they cannot accept the idea that that a person can be old at the same time can look young.
Perhaps we can add to that, Adi, that the clue that we get every day is what we're attracted to is beauty. What we're attracted to is pleasing things. Sukh. We don't want dukh. So these words are important because dukh's been called sin. But let me explain the word sin while we're at it. This word was invented by Christian scholars not too long ago to serve their purposes. And they took the word is, and the word is in English comes from Ishta. The Ishta Devatas are the basis of what is. So the Devas and Devis, you could think of them as the blueprint level of what exists. They're in charge of the laws of nature. So what is resting upon the laws of nature. The Devas and Devis are those laws of nature as the Ishtas and Ishtis. Everyone has an Ishta or Ishti Devata that they're working with and for because your particular body is made from a department of matter and everything has a department. But the word sin was made by reversing is to si and putting the negative n on. So the word sin is something in Christianity you're born with, like a disease. According to Christianity, you came here because you sinned, but there's no explanation of where you were, no explanation of what you did, but somehow, inexplicably, you sinned. And so now there's only one way to get rid of that sin because you can't remember doing it. So it's not about what you did. It's only the Jesus medicine that can get rid of your sin. And this is how they spoke to ignorant, uneducated peasants to frighten them, intimidate them. They invented hell, some hole in the ground, and only the poet Dante said what was going on there, not the Bible. And then they said, if you don't do what we say, you'll go to this hole in the ground and get tortured. You'll be tortured. God likes to torture. And if you don't do what you're told and do it right in one lifetime, you'll be tortured forever. What a wonderful deity. Will torture you forever. So sin is something you can't remember doing. You're told you did do. You should feel very guilty and hate yourself for doing it. Is why you're here. And there's only one cure, and that's the Jesus medicine. So you just have to say yes to Jesus, and then all your sin went away. So when we translate the Gita, that word is used for pop. But pop and punya just mean positive and negative responses within matter.
Exactly. Yes.
That's all they mean. If you obey the laws of nature, you get punya. If you go against them, you get pop. If you go against the laws of nature, you get duk, distress. And if you go with the laws of nature, you get sukh, happy.
Yeah, generally in the Vedic culture, pap just means that it's a temporary stage, like just like uh, sukh is a temporary state, dukh is also a temporary state. There is nobody eternally dukhi unless they want to be,
Yeah,
and
they just have to, but they have to keep earning it.
a- and nobody can be eternally papi, because at some place you learn from this. Even a diehard criminal learns someday or the other, regrets what he did.
Well, it is interesting also that we call the mother ma in English, but we call the father pop. Looks like the men are the problem and not the women. But the women have been prejudiced against in Western society. I think we should make them president and Supreme Court justice and let the men take a break for a while.
It is a very good suggestion, because I am totally for it. If there is a woman president or anyone else, and in fact, most of our clubs are run by the women, were led by the women in any case, because they do a better job than men many times
It's a
over.
well-known fact in the Vedic culture that the Devis are in charge of life, that the woman is in charge of the home and everything that's important, and the man is to protect that. But without her, that she is life itself. And we've gotten rid of, in the Western world, we got rid of life itself, all the feminines.
Right before the Mahabharat war was starting, Krishna asks Arjun, it's just a few minutes before the Mahabharat war starting, Krishna asks Arjun to worship Devi. And Arjun recites beautiful 8 prayers for Durga.
Yes.
And Durga immediately appears and tells, gives him blessings that he recognizes him, he's Nar and Narayan, and he's going to be victorious. Now, even for warfare, we have women in charge in the world, in this bhumi.
Because she's Mother Nature, so he has to ask her permission to harm any of her children. And the mantras he chanted say, if I'm doing this against your wishes, you go ahead and make me fail. But I'm trying to do this so that some of your children who are behaving badly are harming all of your children. So please forgive me while I knock your naughty children out of their body.
You mentioned some very good point just in last thing here, and probably you can educate some people here, that how in the Abrahamic concept the women were treated as an object, and which was much later introduced in India also through colonization, But first impression was, and I can tell you from my grandmother's point of view, she said these people, and she's from India, like born in, like I tell people, I'm 100% gold standard Indian. So, and she was, she said when the British came, that is the first time in a village some man looked at any woman and stared at them. That's what she
Right.
said, in a negative way.
Right.
So what is this Abrahamic concept which really puts them in the back foot?
Well, this is a very important part of the Gita, actually, because throughout the Bhagavad Gita, this respect and this uh, sense that, because Arjun arguing emotionally against killing was in a very real sense him arguing for the feminine. And in a sense, Krishna said to him, why have you suddenly become so feminine, so effeminate? Because you don't want to kill, because that's the last thing that the feminine wants to do, because she brings life into the world. So this was such an important principle. But what happened in the Abrahamics was by the time Christianity got to about the 6th century, it had a problem because they were telling everyone you have to be baptized, your sins have to be washed off. And so a very famous Christian theologian at that time, whose name will come to me in a moment, invented a doctrine called original sin because they were saying if we didn't do anything before we were born, how could we sin? And why do we then need to be cleansed of sins? Because we didn't have a previous life or birth. So this became a real problem in Christianity. And this theologian said, well, but you see, it's called original sin. It's something you did, and it happened first with Adam and Eve. And he then invented the story of Eve and the apple. So it all became Eve's fault because she was the one who tempted Adam. So this means we've made Adam, the man, the victim of the woman. And she has something that she can't control that led her to consort with the devil. Interesting that devil has a pitchfork like who? Shivji. And the devil is Devi with an L added.
So striking.
It's
Yeah.
so and the next thing that the Christians did was they went all across Europe and destroyed the feminine, the adoration of the feminine divine wherever it was happening. In Ireland, all the Celtic cultures, of course, like all cultures, honored the feminine. So this uh, is a very important understanding that Christianity invented this guilt and sin and then ascribed it to Eve and said that the devil was able to tempt her. So don't trust the women. The exact opposite of the Vedic culture, which said that all the Devis are how life and comes into being. So always ask the feminine how to live life. And they're sacred. You have no right to touch them unless they give you permission. And you should not even look at them with that in mind. This was the Vedic culture. And now we're praising the Christian culture as if it somehow is over this. But this is why women, aside from people of color, were prejudiced against in Christianity for so long because they're the next thing to the devil.
What an amazing explanation. Many viewers must have heard it for the first time. Another point gives me to the point. Two things brings to my mind is uh, Dashrath, the father of Bhagwan Ram. Before you perform an Ashwamedh Yagya or any Yagya, all women have to purify the place, women and cows. So before a horse is sent out, before the king's armies go behind him, behind the horse, wherever he goes. The queens of the Maharaj Dashrath had to use a sword to purify the animal. That's a ceremony where women are closely involved in the process, which is supposed to be led by the men. Another thing which comes to point is that is a historical reference right in Valmiki Ramayana. Now in the Loka, I will come back to the Loka. Now many movies are being made in Hollywood and everywhere, and the movies that are being famous or become very successful on any of the Netflix or Amazon Prime, where the characters move between different dimensions, and those viewership is in billions. People watch it again and again and again and again. So the entire alien theory, which is being said that the aliens are coming to Earth to invade us, that is busted, because it's a one way explanation. But the entire Vedic history is filled with people traveling intergalactic or different give to Loka or different dimensions they are traveling to. Like Vyasdev is very well known of appearing and disappearing. So he comes in front of Satyavati and he talks to her. After the conversation, he disappears. The, everywhere, it's whether he comes in or Yudhishthir. So with so many references being there and multiple people acknowledging it, just like if you want to in any text, if you want to find out the loopholes, you have to first find the inconsistencies. When you find the inconsistencies, then you know that's where the author missed out, or that must be imaginary. But you don't find any such inconsistency in Bhagavad Gita. It's a continuous conversation, a logical question after another logical question. So, especially in terms of hell and heaven and Loka, what do you find as consistencies where you see that these are not just imaginary fragmentations? There's no loopholes there. Loopholes, again, holes.
Well, great question, Adi. And part of the answer, I wanted to just back up slightly and say that we should always remember whenever someone says to me, uh, Arjun and Krishna, I say, well, actually, Draupadi was the woman who was the wife of the five Pandavas. And unless we think about that for a moment, this makes her the most extraordinary woman, one of the most extraordinary human women in Vedic history, if not the most extraordinary. Because Sita and Ram was Lakshmi and Vishnu. But who is Draupadi? That, first of all, she dharmically partnered with the five Pandavas, and not at her own seeking, but at the request of their mother, of the Pandavas' mother, who never told a lie and therefore created this unusual situation. And isn't it the case that Duryodhana wanted her disrobed in public, and that this is the despicable action that led to the final conflict that could not be avoided because he'd broached all the boundaries of propriety, all the boundaries. And the last one, and the most famous event, my favorite story, is about why Draupadi had endless sorry. May I tell it?
Yes, please go ahead.
So, a long time before that, the Pandavas and Krishna had been out on a picnic, and Draupadi was young, and they're newly married to the five brothers, and she wore her wedding sari on the picnic because she was so excited about her beautiful life, and she wanted to honor everyone who was present there. But there's a saying that a woman should never rip or tear her wedding sari. It's sort of sacred, and it symbolizes the marriage all staying intact in a way. So it's a risky thing to wear your wedding sari. So while they were on the picnic, they were sitting there eating, and there was a child playing over in the bushes, and Bhagavan was sitting and talking with Arjun, and there was a tiger in the bushes about to jump and attack and kill the child. And as soon as Krishna saw it, he grabbed his Sudarshan chakra. He threw the chakra, but he grabbed it so quickly, he badly cut his finger. Well, meanwhile, the chakra kills the tiger. But now Krishna's finger is spurting blood. Arjun runs off to get some herbs from the bushes, and Draupadi tears a piece off her wedding sari, a complete forbidden, and wraps it around Bhagavan's finger to staunch the bleeding. That was the debt that he repaid to her when she put both hands up. For a while, she was holding her sari with one hand. This complete surrender to Bhagavan is to me the perfect image and forgotten image that this Mahabharata conflict took place because of an unpardonable offense from Duryodhana that now needed to be redressed from Bhagavan's perspective in order for us to truly take back our correct relationship with the feminine. And so this remarkable story is why I took all of the he, him, and his personal pronouns out of the Bhagavad Gita. It is always one who and not he or him. This is the most insidious mistranslation problem, that he, him are the favored pronouns in what? In English, in a culture that denigrated the feminine, made her the problem, put her in a despicable position, doesn't have a feminine divine. And so this is one of the almost invisible, visible radical things we took out of the Gita. Him is no longer there.
So my last book is on Yudhishthir. It came out last year, November, in which I debunked many misconceptions about Yudhishthir, and then I covered the entire episode of Draupadi in much detail. Uh, so
I
what?
would have expected you to.
So when people talk about Draupadi, there are many things to remember, and but the gist of the story is that she was a very strong lady, and she had appeared from a place. She's a daughter of fire, and
Tupa,
she and her brother both, Drishtidyumna, very special people,
very.
not ordinary people. And the five Pandavas also had a similar glorious background. And it is all due to the kripa of Mahadev, Shivji, that she got five husbands because she asked five people and five times. So, like you said, again, the karma bank.
The
You
Karma Bank, and but also the Leela Bank. And this we need to remember, that this Leela was created by Bhagavan to teach us these many things. And I just wanted to tie this in with one word.
Yeah.
Remember, I said Bhumi, Homi, human. So this is where the word mankind comes from, is from Manu. And it's not from male. This is the biggest misunderstanding. It's from Manusya, which is the manas faculty. Manas is not man. So we are not mankind. The worst offense against the feminine. We are Manusya,
correct.
one and all. We are all endowed with the manas faculty. And our mother, Bhumi, is avatared in every female on the planet who acts as her representative to guide us in preserving life, because the creator of life, the one who gives birth to it and breastfeeds it, and her other breastfeeding companion, the much misunderstood cow, because if she can't breastfeed, famous story, I know you know this, Adi, when the Pandavas went in exile and Draupadi breastfed the Nishada's baby. So all of this imagery is what has been desecrated by Christianity, commandeering the story with their vocabulary and removing all of these important nuances.
It's a very brutal language creation, and by talking to you, I'm realizing it day by day. And I have learned with you so much in last 10 calls, maybe. And see, coming back to the Manushya is the city established by Manu in India is Ayodhya. Ayodhya is the city created by Manu, and Vivaswat Manu is the one who created Ayodhya. and Vavasvat Manu. Now, in that, the meaning of Manushya comes out to be his people, Manu's people. In English, we say Manu's people. Manushya means Manu's people is Manush looks who look like him, and that's a Manushya, his people. Like you touched upon very good point in the last one when you're talking about Draupadi and women. And somehow we are in this topic. Audience is loving it. Thank you for all of you for giving thumbs up. And so one question which comes to people's mind is that there is a linguistic history. The connotations have been accepted as literal meanings, which is way different than denotation. Now, here we are talking about denotations here, not connotations. Now, denotation can give you the etymological history of the word. Uh, It's a very difficult word for me to pronounce, etymological. Today I got it correct for the first time. So, so we are talking about etymological history, which actually shows you from where it comes, and it has a psychological impact on your mind when you speak. And so you can correct me, add me anywhere you want, Jeffrey. So it if these words, they make you thought process in a certain direction, and if you use the Sanskrit words or any other words, the origins are literally scientific, pure, and have some basis to it. But here the basis is something else, and therefore it takes you away from the culture. Generally, I've seen many people speaking different languages. The people, and I'm not judging anyone, all of us are speaking English here, the show is in English. So generally I've seen people who have multiple languages they speak, either Spanish or English, Portuguese, or some other languages, or Indian languages, Hindi, Sanskrit, whatever. Their brains are wired in a different way, and if they're speaking non Latinized languages, the heart comes out, whether you are speaking Vietnamese, or you're speaking Balinese, or you're speaking Simhalese, Sri Lankan, or speaking Hindi, Telugu, Tamil. It's more heart based communication. So what is your viewpoint on that? The language inspires the mind process.
I want to answer that partly by saying in our Gita, the Gita comes alive. While we were taking out all of these obstructive language problems, we also do not call it a war story because wars now kill civilians. And even the Mahabharata did not kill the civilians nearby. The soldiers didn't rage off the field and start killing civilians. So we call the Bhagavad Gita a love story, not a war story, not even a battle story. The battle was the undesired consequence of a love story not going as it should. So if you'll change your context, and please don't agree that this is a war story. It's not even about the battle. The battle is just the culminating moment where Bhagavan chose to speak to Arjun on our behalf, to leave behind the message that was always intended to be left behind. But as Adi just said, this is where the real meaning, the denotation of words, is so important. Because 7,581 years ago, according to my dear friend Nilesh Oak, Bhagavan spoke this for us in Sanskrit. If he had spoken it in English, we would have no idea what he said right now. He spoke it in Sanskrit, a perfect, precise language, with 2012 dhatus or roots, with 5,000 grammatical rules, so that our most brilliant scholars could hold that meaning exactly in the same way that it existed 7,000 years ago. No other civilization has this characteristic. And it is so important that you give precedence to Sanskrit, its design, and its meanings, and let that be the gold standard for comparing to other languages. Then ask how much chaos is in this language and how much mischief. What part did it play in destroying our understanding of Sanskrit, colonizing the greatest civilization in the world, Bharat, India. And this is the renaissance that I think we're all in the midst of right now. I view Adi as a leader in that. I'm trying to make a contribution. And all of you have a choice right now. You can join that renaissance of the culture that preserves the planet.
Great point. Actually, the word Mahabharat, there are two meanings of Mahabharat, and you must be already knowing it. The actual meaning of Mahabharat, which Vaishampayan tells to Janmajay, is a book which consists of heavy instructions. Mahabhar. So Maha means great, Bhar means heavy, great weight. It's a book of heavy instructions. Another meaning of Mahabharat is Mahabharat means the land of Bharat, the son of Dushyant and Shakuntala. And he was Bharat Maharaj, and therefore, because he conquered the whole planet, he was one of the Samrat. There have only been seven Samrats in the history. And the greatest of all of them, according to Narada, Asita, Devila, Vyasa, Pulastya, Markandeya, and Krishna himself, is Yudhishthir. No one has touched his glory in wealth, power, renunciation, in any of those categories, which is Bhagwan is known as, which we already spoke last time. We already spoke about Bhagwan. So therefore, I will never call it a book of war because it has culture, music, it has instructions, niti, everything it has got. So it's not just a war. It's a big misconception that Mahabharata is a story of war. No, it is a story of how to not have a war. Actually, it's a ultimate book of peace, and I think very few people, or you must be aware of that. The British had banned two things in India. One was Kalaripayattu and second was Mahabharat. And through the British sponsored scholars, they spread the information in India that keeping Mahabharat in the house creates family feuds or fights in the family. So most of the people in India, even today, people who are watching it, there some of them are no from India, but most of you are not from India. But this is the level of misconception was being spread that and Bhagavad Gita says wherever this Mahabharata is there, means this instruction, because Gita is part of Mahabharata, where there will be peace, prosperity, happiness, niti, dhruva, nitir, matir, mama. Sanjay says it in the end. So many misconceptions have been spread across in India. Actually, brings me to the last point in this series, in this discussion, is that is the Loka, now this question has come from the audience, is the Loka travel possible?
All right. Well, like I said before, you can't go from Loka to Loka as if all the Lokas are the same. So you can't take an Earth-made spaceship to Svargaloka because that's assuming that they're all on level 8, because the construction of the Loka has to do with the level that it's on. And this is why it's a dimension and not a location. Location's a word we use in English. And there's one more piece to this, that it's us, the Atma, for whom all of this vidya, all of this great knowledge has been given. And this is why we're called in English, mistakenly but correctly, individual. This Vedic vidya is the gift to everyone to be remembered because it includes everyone. There is no such thing as receiving the gift of the Vedic vidya and not including every living entity in the circle that forms from that in a loving way, not a forceful way, not a coercive way. So here's the thing I wanted to answer, two of your questions. Language that is not based on its root is a vritti. Yogas chit vritti nirodha. The word advertising is from the Sanskrit word vritti. Twisted meanings are Duryodhana. Twisted meanings are vrittis. When you untwist the language, you're actually perfecting your yoga. And this is why it's called Buddhi Yoga by Bhagavan throughout the Gita. It is your Buddhi that has been twisted. And yoga is yogas chit vritti nirodha. Remove those twisted words. Use the words that are reliable, clear, have a root, have a meaning, whose meaning can't be twisted. Because crooked politicians and advertisers are all about twisting you. And sadhus and acharyas and all of the rishis are about giving you the light, the deepa, so you become an adept. The English word adept is from the Sanskrit deepa. May that light of the Gita shine in your life always. Thank you, Adi, for all you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And you brought out very good points there. And the marketers and the people who want to corrupt your mind, they use two concepts, and we can talk later on: avirodh priti and virod yukt krodh. They want you to become angry. If you can't attain your goal, they want you to become angry, make bad decisions, and then create frustration and move away. And Gita is a path of peace and happiness. So thank you so much. It's always a pleasure, and it's so much fun. I hope you learned something. And if you are interested to know more, that's Jeffrey's book, Gita Comes Alive. And there's a website also mentioned on his screen. You can see that, gitacomesalive.com. And I think it's on Amazon too, right?
Yes, it is. Thank you, Adi.
Do it on Amazon. It's a beautiful
Both
copy. I love the
hardback and paper.
beautiful cover. And the peacock is shown there. That's a carrier of Shiva's son. We'll talk about later. The
Transcendental.
favorite bird. So, namaskar and thank you.